Hello reader friends and bookish besties, it's your girl Erica aka PaperbackGirly, and today I have a little bit of a fun video for you guys. I thought that instead of doing a March reading wrap up, I would do something a little bit different, keep things a little bit fresh here on my channel, and try out a tier ranking video. So today I'm going to be tier ranking all of the books that I've read in the first quarter of the year. But the first quarter of the year would be January, February, and March. We are right at the edge of March right now. It is currently March 25th, and I do have some books that I'm still reading and probably will finish by the end of the month. But we're going to be tier ranking the 29 books that I've read thus far this year, and I'm really excited because it'll be nice to look back at all of the books that I've read already this year, remind myself of the good reads, the bad reads, the reads that I probably don't even remember reading. If you guys are new here, my name is Erica. I go by the name PaperbackGirly on the internet, and I love to talk about books. If you like talking about books, sharing your thoughts about books, if you like buying books, if you just love books, would love it if you decided to stick around, and I hope that you guys enjoy this video today. So with that being said, let's get started. I thought the first thing that we could do is maybe go over some of my stats thus far this year. Welcome to my Bookmory. I'm currently reading Kiss the Sky, and I also just started Terms and Conditions. We'll go to my book calendar. So I love this feature because you can just see the overview of all of the books that you've read. So here's a quick peek at each of the months. And then we'll go into the main stats. I also maybe want to check out my Storygraph stats. I've read a total of 29 books this year so far, and I'm reading about 9 books a month. I read the most books in January, which was crazy. I read 12 books that month. But some current page stats, the longest book that I've read thus far this year has been A Court of Mist and Fury, followed by A Love Letter to Whiskey, one of my favorite books of the year so far. Then is Mile High, The Evolution of Mara Dyer, Twisted Lies, Addicted for Now, and so on and so forth. I will say that I've read the longest books that I have this far this year in the month of March. I read 2 books that were over 600 pages and a couple that were over 500. So now we'll hop over to my Storygraph. I think Storygraph is like one of my favorite apps to sort of put my reading stats into. My current reading goal for the year 2023 is to read 100 books, and this is the first year in a while that I've actually really set a reading goal and have been actually aspiring to beat a reading goal rather than just like reading leisurely. So right now I am 6 books ahead of schedule, which is cool. In the first 3 months of the year, I've read 11,583 pages, which is mind-blowing to me. A lot of the reads have been emotional, lighthearted, adventurous, tense, a little bit of funny, a little bit of dark and reflective, and then a tiny bit of mysterious, hopeful, and sad. I've been reading a lot of medium-paced books at 62%, but I have some fast and some slow-paced books in there, which is interesting. Majority of the books that I read are between 300 and 499 pages. I like that sort of medium ground. I like a little bit of content, okay? But not too much. I haven't read a single nonfiction book this year, which is okay. I'm not gonna, get down on myself about that. I'm definitely in a fiction mood at the moment, but I have had times where I've been really into nonfiction, so I know that in the future that will come back into my life. Taking a peek at the genres, I am a big, heavy romance reader, as if you've been here a while, you may know that. But I do like to dabble in different genres, so I do see some contemporary in there, some young adult. But I do really want to make it a point throughout the rest of the year to dabble in various different genres, so I'm excited to take you guys along in that part of my reading journey. My most read authors thus far have been Liz Tomford, Devney Perry, Abby Glines, Anna Huang, and Sarah J. Maas. All of them I've read at least 2 of their books. I lastly just want to take a peek at this little chart right here. I love looking at the number of pages read. In January I read 4,203 pages. In February I read 3,233 pages. And in March so far I've read 4,147 pages, which is crazy. I like seeing things like that. My average star rating right now is a 3.97, and I think I can see where that has come from. I was in a little bit of a book slump for a second, and I think that my ratings can be quite polarizing. Like I either love or hate a book. Not even that I hate it, it's just like I base it off the vibes, off my reading experience, how I'm feeling. So I can see where this is coming from. So we'll look at some of that in a second as well. Now that we have gone through all of the stats for the year thus far and taken a little peek at some of those, we're gonna go ahead and start the tier ranking. I do have everything set up on my iPad right now, so I'll go ahead and leave it on the screen. I made this little tier ranking list and I'll go ahead and explain each of the tiers. The first one is new God tier book, and I decided to make this category because I found some really amazing reads so far this year, and so I needed a category just for them. The next one is I still think about these characters on a daily basis. This is similar to a God tier book, but I don't know, there's a little bit of a difference. I think about the characters, I love the story, but it's just not quite a God tier book. It's not gonna be something that will last with me for a lifetime. The next category is I liked it, but I don't think about it much anymore. And these are books that I think I had a great reading experience with, but I haven't thought about it since I've read it, or I've had other books that sort of captivated me a little bit more since then. The next one is would recommend it, but not a favorite. These are books that I understand the hype about, just didn't really find my personal liking and didn't really spark my personal interest. The next one is I like not to think about this book, and I think that explains itself. These are books that I probably have purposefully tried to forget. And the last one is this book belongs in the acts committed in Fahrenheit 451. If you know, you know. And I think this was a little bit dramatic, but I feel like I needed just like a category that just really describes my distaste towards certain books. And if you've read or watched the adaptation for Fahrenheit 451, you may know that it is a dystopian world where they burn books. Whatever book ends in that category, we will see. I think I know which one I'm gonna put in that category, but we may not even have to use it. So I'm going to like just kind of like randomly jumble them up a little bit. Finley Donovan is Killing It is a book that I read in February, and it was sitting on my TBR for a long time. It was on my end of year TBR. I wanted to read it and I heard such great things about it, but I wasn't sure. I just wasn't sure if I was ready to dabble into it. I finally picked it up and I actually really liked it. I rated it 4.5 stars. I loved the cozy mystery aspect. I thought it was such a bizarre, crazy story. There was a slight love interest or a little bit of intrigue, angst type situation between a couple different love interests, and so as a romance reader that definitely like kicked it up a couple notches. I liked it, but I don't think about it much anymore, and I really did like this story. I really did, and I have full intentions to continue on in the series. I would recommend it. I rated it very high, but like I don't really think about it much. Talk Santa to me was a book that I finished in January, and it was a cute little YA rom-com. I liked it. I didn't really have many thoughts about it. It was a younger book. It was meant for a younger audience, so it wasn't anything too crazy, but I did enjoy my experience. I will say I liked it, but I don't think about it much anymore. It was a good book. I rated it 3.5 stars. I think I already said that, but it's just a Christmas book, so that's that on that. The Brutal Prince, I actually just finished this today, and I immediately rated it a 3.5 stars, but I still don't know how I feel. I really like the book. I really like the book, and I read it so fast. I started it late last night, and I finished it early this morning. So it was a fast-paced read, but I feel like it just kind of happened really fast. I like the premise of the story. I like the idea of the mafia romance and like the hate to love marriage of convenience of it all. Overall, I don't think it was like a captivating book. I say I'm gonna put it in would recommend it, but not a favorite. Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid is actually a book that I listened to via Kindle Unlimited. They have like some books that you can listen to the free audiobook. This is like a collection of letters between two people. So there's a woman that ends up finding out that her husband's having an affair, and she writes a letter to the other woman's husband letting him know about the affair. They end up writing back and forth to each other. together and end up kind of sparking this relationship where they're able to connect up over this sort of tragedy, and they end up, I guess maybe in a way, falling in love or just like becoming romantic partners. It's just a very interesting story. What I really liked about the story is that it took place in Carlsbad, California. Like one of the people lived in Carlsbad, so I was like, oh my god, I live right next to Carlsbad, California. So that was cool. But another thing I liked about the story was just like the delivery of it. I liked that you got the story through the correspondence. You didn't really get all the events or the scenes. You kind of piece things together on your own. I liked it. I always liked Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing. I think I only rated it 4 stars, maybe 3.5, 4 stars. I would say I liked it, but I don't think about it much anymore. Mile High. Mile High is a book that I read for daylight savings, and I did this whole daylight savings vlog, which has recently been posted on my channel. I basically decided that I was gonna read a bunch of books, but I ended up just reading one book, and that was Mile High. This book completely changed the way I think about books, and Liz Tomford has me in a chokehold right now. I'm absolutely obsessed with her, and I'm so excited for the continuation of this series. A new god tier book. Okay, I still think about the characters daily, but I also am still so enthralled in that story and still so upset that I don't have any more to read in that book and in that story. I also finished another book in that series. We'll get to that later, but new god tier book. Probably one of my favorite books of all time. It has put itself up there. I will rave about that book for a very, very, very long time. The Fine Print by Lauren Asher is a book that I've listened to on Libby, but I also had it on my Kindle via Kindle Unlimited. I liked this book. I think I rated it 3.5 stars. I would have given it a 4 stars, but I think maybe it was the audiobook sort of format that kind of knocked it down. And then I wasn't a huge fan of the trope where he was like texting the girl under a false name. Like, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of that. So I will say would recommend it, but not a favorite. Flawless by Elsie Silver got me out of my book slump. I am so excited to post my March reading vlog because I talk about it a lot in that reading vlog. This book is about Rhett Easton and Summer. I forget her last name, but Rhett and Summer could be one of my favorite book couples of all time. Rhett is a bull rider and Summer is the daughter of his PR agent, and she also works with the company, and so Kip, the PR agent, sends Summer to go kind of whip his image into shape a bit. And what I love most about this story is just how mature the two characters are, and that they bring that sense of maturity and confidence to that relationship. Like sometimes people grow to be confident through their relationship, but I feel like both of these characters were both confident and had something to bring to the relationship. And not that either or is better than the other, but it was very refreshing and enlightening to see that. I think that made me connect with the characters a lot more. I'm gonna say I still think about these characters on a daily basis because I genuinely do, and I'm so appreciative of the fact that it got me out of my reading slump. The Vincent Brothers is a reread from my childhood. It was a book that I read whenever I was maybe in like high school. It is a book by Abby Glines. It is a companion series with another book that I think maybe we'll be talking about a little later on. I also read it this year. I'm gonna say I liked it, but I don't think about it much anymore. We'll go ahead and talk about the Vincent boys too. So we'll say both of them, or I liked it, but I don't really think about it much anymore. It's about 2 boys who have this best friend. Her name is Ashton, and they're both kind of in love with her for different reasons. They grew up together. It's like a childhood's best friends to lovers. And some other things happen in the book that if you decide to read it, I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. I really did like it, and these 2 books really got me into reading. They introduced me to Abby Glines and the whole sort of like romance genre in general, because up until then I was mostly reading like grade school books, you know, adventures and stuff like that. So this was great for my preteen angsty self, and it was a good reread, but I don't really think about it much anymore. The 10,000 Doors of January was a big step in the fantasy direction for me. I read this in January because it was on brand, and I liked the book. It reminded me a lot of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which I rated 5 out of 5 stars a few years back. But this book, as I rethink about it, I think I rated it 3.5 stars, maybe 4 stars, and I kind of want to change that rating. Like I want to give it like a 4.5 or like even a 5, because even though it was a more dense read, I would say that I still kind of think about that book. I still remember certain parts of the book where it was like, wow, this is cool. So I want to say, I don't want to say I think about it on a daily basis, but I will say I do still think about this book whenever I, remember it. I'm gonna say I still think about these characters on a daily basis because I do think that even though I didn't really immediately connect with it at first, that it's still something that has resonated with me. It was a really powerful, captivating story, and I liked it. That's kind of a weird, random twist. I was not expecting that from myself. Next is Addicted for Now by Krista and Becca Ritchie, which is a book I read in February, and this book was a good book. I talked about this book in my February monthly reading vlog if you want my full in-depth thoughts, but I talked about in that vlog that it wasn't giving 5 stars. I gave it, I think at the end of the day, like 4.5 stars, and I'm going to stay true to that. I will say that I liked it, but I don't think about it much anymore. But I will say that I did thoroughly enjoy the book. So I don't think about these characters on a daily basis. Well, I guess I do. I think about the series on a daily basis, but I don't think about this particular book on a daily basis. Love in Other Words is a book that's still very fresh in my mind, so I think I'm gonna rate this very highly on this list. I liked this book a lot, and I think maybe if I wouldn't have listened to it on Libby, I would have had an even better reading experience. With audiobooks, sometimes the quality of my reading experience declines just ever so slightly, whether it's the audiobook actress or actor, or I'm not 100% paying attention during the entire thing, or whatever the variables may be. Sometimes with audiobooks, I just don't have the best reading experience. But I will say I really, really love this book. I feel like this is a book that was so unique in the sense that it was like the true beginnings of love, like somebody's genuine first love. They grew up together. It's like a dual POV timeline. I like that we get the timeline of them being older. Like, I really did like this book. So I will say I still think about these characters on a daily basis. Maybe not an entire everyday basis, but I do still think about these characters. And maybe it's just because it's still fresh in my mind. I did just read this book this month, but I get the hype on Love in Other Words. It's a really, really, really good book. And this was my first Christina Lauren book, so they're starting off strong. Ooh, Twisted Hate. Twisted Hate. I don't know whether to put this book into new God tier book or I still think about these characters on a daily basis because it fits both of those categories in a way. So Twisted Hate is a book I read in February and I absolutely fell in love with it rather instantly. I also talk about that book in my February reading vlog if you want to see my in-depth thoughts, but just love that book so much. Josh and Jules, I was connected to them from the get-go. I love the enemies to lover bantership. I love that they're both very driven individuals and that they both have big careers that they're striving for. I feel like they are such a powerful dynamic duo, and it was just great. The spice was great. The storyline was great. I'm not a huge fan of the miscommunication trope, period. That is probably what knocked it down the 0.5 stars. So I will say that I'm going to rate this. I still think about these characters on a daily basis because I genuinely do. Another great book. A Love Letter to Whiskey is a new God tier book. Absolutely consumed the heck out of this book. I have a reading vlog that is not edited that I want to post, but for some reason I just have been prioritizing other videos. This book in January, the end of January, absolutely fell in love with this book. Let me tell you, I don't know what it is about this book, but the way that the story is told, it is so poetic, and I love that we just get this enigmatic flame of a relationship between these two characters, Jamie and B. I want them to be together so bad, but I understand why they're not. It is a constant push and pull of right person, wrong time, or wrong person, right time. And I can't even explain the way that this book made me feel. It was like I was literally squealing the entire time I was reading the book. The angst was perfect, the story was perfect, and even though it's not the most healthy love story and these two characters have, put each other through the ringer, I thought it was a beautiful story. Darling Venom. I think we found our first I like not to think about this book. And the reason why I feel this way is because I think I was just expecting a way different book, a way different book than what I got. I didn't really connect to the characters. I only really liked the idea of the manuscript, and like I really wish that we were able to read it. And I don't even remember if we did read it. I don't think we did. It didn't really resonate that well with me. So I will say I like not to think about this book. A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas is a book that I read recently. I finished this in March. I tried to read mostly green books in March. So this book is a big old chonker, okay? It's over 600 pages. It's the longest book that I've read thus far this year. And a lot happens in this book. I mean, the whole story takes a complete 180 turn. I was not expecting where we get to by the end of the book, but I really did like it. I want to say I think about these characters on a daily basis because it's still fresh in my mind, and I'm very excited to get to the rest of the story. So I think we're gonna say I still think about these characters on a daily basis. I am very excited to see what goes on with Feyre and Tamlin because whoa. I mean, if you've seen my ACOTAR reading vlog, you would know that I'm rooting for Tamlin, or I was rooting for Tamlin, but now I understand why no one roots for Tamlin. And I'm very intrigued to see what Feyre does while she's back in the Spring Court. The Evolution of Mara Dyer is a book that I read in January, and I rated it 5 out of 5 stars. This book will always have a slight piece of my heart, and I love the relationship between Noah Shaw and Mara Dyer. So I think this will always be a God tier book for me, and because I don't really have any other categories that I think would fit into it, I think I'm just going to put it in my God tier book because this book will always have a special place in my heart. The Chemistry of Love by Soraya Wilson is a book that I listened to on Kindle Unlimited, and it was just a cute little closed door romance about a woman who is trying to break her way into the scientific side of the cosmetic world. She is a scientist that loves and has a passion for creating compounds that have to do with makeup, and so she has this idea for a lipstick that could change the Minx cosmetic company that she works for. She has some people though in her life that sort of take advantage of her, and it sort of affects the way that she trusts people and the way that she interacts with people, but she's really good-hearted and, you know, can't really see through the BS sometimes. She ends up sparking up this relationship with, I guess, like her boss, and he sees the good in her and whatnot. I don't really remember this book much after that. I think that there's like an element of fake dating. It's not that I don't like to think about this book. I guess I would recommend it, but it's not a favorite. I would recommend it to people if they're looking for a closed door romance. It's probably not the first book that would come to mind. So we will say would recommend it, but not a favorite. A Court of Thorns and Roses is another book that I read in February. I have an entire reading vlog just on that video. If you want to check that out, please do. Also, still think about these characters on a daily basis, and maybe it's just because I'm still, you know, freshly in the world. I just started reading this series recently, and I'm really understanding the hype surrounding it. So I will say I still think about these characters daily. I knew this book was gonna come. We all knew this book was gonna come. If you've been here since February, or you've seen my February reading vlog, when I tell you I could not explain to you the detest I have for that book, the level of just dissatisfaction that I had while reading the book, terribly negative emotions that I had while reading the book. I'm very happy that that book is over with. But conversely, I will tell you that I'm liking the adaptation, the Hulu TV series. Like, I'm liking it. And I think I said in my February reading vlog that that type of book is better on TV. That type of story is better whenever you can see the characters and you can respond visually to their acting rather than reading it and trying to conceptualize it in your head and then having your own preconceived notions. Like, I just did not connect with either of the characters. They're incredibly dislikable, and it was just not for me. So that book belongs in the acts committed in Fahrenheit 451. Period. Una Out of Order is a book that I read in January, and this has a bit of an element of science fiction to it. It basically follows this woman who each year on her birthday, which is January 1st, she like jumps into a new year of life. So one year she'll be 19, the next year she'll be 42, the following year she'll be 17, the next year after that she'll be 89. Like, she just jumps into crazy different parts of her life, and I really did like the book. I think I rated it 4 out of 5 stars, and this was back whenever I wasn't giving books half ratings, but I think I've read enough books so far that I can discern which ones are half ratings or which ones are not. I will say I liked it, but I don't really think about it much anymore. It's a really good book and I would definitely recommend it, but I haven't thought about it much since. I really did like it though. Magnolia Parks. So I wouldn't say this is a god tier book. I really did like the book, and so I think I'm going to say I still think about these characters on a daily basis. Whenever I think about the book, I am still excited to read the next in the series. I even pulled out, where is it? Oh, it's on my bed. I even pulled out Daisy Hates because I was like, I really want to get back into this universe. So I'm gonna put, I still think about these characters on a daily basis because I generally kind of do. Juniper Hill. So I read Juniper Hill in the end of January, I believe. I think I rated it like 3.5 out of 5 stars, maybe 4 out of 5 stars. I wasn't as connected to Juniper Hill as I was to Indigo Ridge, and I think maybe it's because of like the single parent trope. I'm not a huge fan of the single parent trope, but Juniper Hill is a book that I think I would recommend but is not a favorite. Layla, I like not to think about this book because I'm not sure how I feel about it. Like, I don't know if I like it, if I hate it. It's just a bizarre book. If you've read this book, you know, and it may have left you perplexed. Like, I love Colleen Hoover's ability to do that with her writing sometimes. Like, she did it with Verity, but I like not to think about this book. It's just a bizarre story, and we'll leave it at that. The Right Move is another god tier book. Actually, I think I'm gonna say that I still think about these characters on a daily basis because I definitely still think about Ryan and Indy on a daily basis. I just read this book in March, but I will say, and maybe it's because I read Mile High and was just so enthralled with that book as well, that I was just expecting a bit more in the beginning, and at the beginning I just wasn't instantly hooked. With Mile High, I was kind of instantly hooked right away. And with The Right Move, it took me a second to kind of connect myself to the characters. But the way that these characters changed my life, like this whole series just has me in a chokehold right now. And I think about it daily. I compare every single book to these books. So we're gonna put it in, I still think about these characters on a daily basis. Twisted Lies is a book that I read in March. I rated it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. I wasn't a huge fan of the twist, I guess, maybe, that happens in the relationship between Christian and Stella. His whole mess up. Wasn't a huge fan of it. It was kind of like, alright. I still rated it very highly. It gave me like 50 Shades of Grey vibes, but like make it modern. Like, he owns a building and she is an Instagram influencer. Liked it a lot, and I loved that we kind of like finish out the series as well. Like, we kind of get everyone back together again. You sort of see everyone in the same circle, and I liked it. Even though I didn't like the first 2 books in the series, I really liked the last 2 books in the series. So I'm happy I stuck with it. And I will say I still think about these characters on a daily basis. Nah, I liked it, but I don't really think about it much anymore. We'll say it like that. 1984 is a weird one to have in here, but this is a classic that I read in January. I wanted to switch up my reads, and I found a free detailed acted out audiobook on YouTube, which was really fun to listen to, and it definitely increased my reading experience. I would say I liked it, but I don't really think about it much anymore. It was a really good book. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars, and the only reason why I didn't give it a 5 out of 5 stars was just because it has a very heavy political discourse. There's an interesting subplot of romance in the book, and there is obviously, of course, this heavy dystopian, but I think it's very interesting. It was a very interesting read, and I felt very mentally stimulated by it. Indigo Ridge is a book that I rated 5 out of 5 stars, was absolutely enthralled with. I love Griffin and Winslow, okay? This book packed such an amazing punch. From the very first chapter, I was instantly like, okay, like, we're getting started, ladies and gentlemen, like, let's go. I thought the spice was amazing. I really liked Daphne Perry's writing, and I also, what I really liked about this book was that the author didn't spend a bunch of time doing like the third act conflict or spending a lot of time with the marriage and the proposal. Like, I like that she just continued on with the story. Like, we knew these characters were gonna be together. We know they're gonna get married, but like she was able to give us a glimpse into their future past just like those regular schmegular romance milestones. New God tier book. New God tier book. I think that book really will always have a piece of my heart, and I don't necessarily think about the characters on a daily basis, but whenever I think about that series and I think about Devney Perry, like I'm thinking Indigo Ridge, and it makes me excited to continue on with the series because I know that she just released another book like maybe in the past couple months, so I have to get back to that pretty soon. Lastly, we have one of my favorite books of all time. This is a reread, and it's actually a book that's going to be turning into a movie that will be coming out on April 12th, which I also have a reading vlog that I'm planning to get out to you guys before that movie comes out. So hopefully Editing Erica does that. Beautiful Disaster is a book that I still think about on a daily basis. Anytime someone asks for what my favorite book of all time is, or like in the past if someone asked me what my favorite book is, I would always say Beautiful Disaster even if they didn't know. And that's because whenever I read this book as a young little 13, 14-year-old girl, or 14, maybe 14, 15-year-old girl, I absolutely devoured it. And then whenever I reread it again as an adult, I also fell back in love with the characters, but in a more mature way. And although my rating changed in terms of just like how enthralled I was in the book, I understood where my younger self was coming from. I also was able to better understand where the two characters in the book were coming from. And I think that because it's becoming a movie, I am just even more excited. Dylan Sprouse is going to be Travis Maddox, so I'm very intrigued to see how it all plays out. I hope you guys enjoy my reading vlog whenever it comes out. So I think that is a book that I will still think about on a daily basis, and I am so excited for the movie rendition. We just tier ranked 29 books, and all of the 29 books that I've read this year so far. Still on track to read about maybe 2 more books this year, this month. I was not expecting to finish Brutal Prince today. I thought it was going to take me a little bit longer, and I have a couple books still on my TBR for the rest of the month, so we will see how all that goes. I thought this was a fun little experiment, and it was cool to kind of think back on my ratings and my thoughts on all of the books that I read this year. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was fun to make it. If you guys want to follow me and my reading endeavors, please feel free to add me as a friend on Goodreads, or if you want to follow me on Instagram. I do plan on maybe starting a bookstagram sometime soon this year, once I get that little confidence in me to do short form content rather than long form content. It's all in my head. It's all in my head. I appreciate you guys for watching this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. And with that being said, it's your girl Erica, aka Paperback Girly, and I'll see you soon.